hopefully you can all see my screen there. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic. Right. Okay. So, yeah, as Phil says, I've set my alarm, so I've got to go and pick my daughter up from school at 22. And we'll see. I'll try and give you a good introduction to the new version. I think some of you have used the old version before, so some things will be familiar, some things completely different. Anything that you've created in the old version, you can access in this version, so don't worry about, that you might have lost anything that you've created with the website you haven't. And I've also put together a little PDF this morning, which I sent to Phil, which has got sort of everything that I'll go through. So if I go through things a bit rapidly today in this session, then don't worry, you can have a little, read through this document in your own time, and it tells you everything that I'll explain. So the new version is installable. The old version used Flash, and then the browsers have decided they're going to stop supporting the Flash plugin in 2021. So I've had to take action, which has meant creating a brand new version, which has actually been quite a nice thing to do, in that it's given me an opportunity to rethink everything completely and to try to improve everything. Not everyone sees it as an improvement, but hopefully you will. It's now available on mobile devices for the first time. The old version never was, so you can install it on iPads, iPhones, Android tablets and Android phones, as well as Windows and Mac, and there's a network version too. This also means that it's easy for students to access, so students can install it for free. It's a free install wherever, and they can access as guests, and I'll show you how they would do that as well. So the screen looks the same. I'm on my Mac, but whether you're on a Windows machine or if you're on your iPad or whatever, it'll always look identical. My version might be slightly more, a slightly newer version than you've got, possibly just because I'm sort of constantly working on it. But again, it looks very similar to this. So we'll click to continue. I had ambitions about translating it into all these different languages, but I think I'm maybe bitten off a bit more than I can chew. But thankfully, English is fine for us today. So we'll just click to continue in English. This is where, if you've got your Triptico username and password, you would type it in here and then click to sign in. If you were a student or if you're a teacher without an account at the moment and you just want to have a little browse around Triptico, you can click no account and then you can click guest access. So it says there, guests can access public activities. They can't delete anything. They can't make any changes to anything that you've created, but they can access files that you've created and marked as public. So that's guest access, which is quite handy to know. But you should all have accounts. If you haven't, then like Phil said, you can let him know and he'll create one for you. So I'll sign into my account.
No, I didn't.
So the page when you sign in always look identical. These buttons I've just added in the last few days, so again they might look slightly different, but you'll have your main buttons over here for creating new activities and for accessing the activity database to find activities that you've created, and for the first time activities that other people have created. So that's a new feature. There's some bonus resources, things like timers and scoreboards, things that you don't necessarily create content for, so they're all in there. And then you can view your account details. So if you wanted to change your username or your password, you can do that in there. There's also a little activity feed, so you can see I follow Phil, so I get a little notification when he creates a new activity. So you might follow different teachers in your department and you get a little notification. You can have a little look at what they've made, and if it's something that you think would be helpful for you, you can mark it as a favorite, or you can make a note of this little code. I'll be telling you more about these little codes in a minute, but each save file has a unique code which you can type in. So this one's 9060. So if I was to go back to the home page and just type 9060, that'll take me directly to that activity. So that's quite a handy thing to know in terms of sharing activities with colleagues, or if you were sharing something with students, then it's quite handy, rather than having them search the database, you can just say it's activity number, whatever. Also helpful, I was thinking, on a lesson plan or a scheme of work, just to note down which Triptico activity you're going to use, and then you can find it straight away. Anyway, so that's the activity feed. You can just go through and see different bits and pieces on there. So I thought what we'd do today, I'll show you how you would create an activity. We'll create a sort of a one-column activity and a two-column activity. The create process is probably the thing that's changed the most in the old version. If you did use the old version, you would open a resource, then you would create an activity with that resource, then you would save that activity and it would be tied or stuck to that resource. You couldn't open it with anything else. Now it's different. Rather than opening the resource first, you just click to create a list. you create a list of whatever it would be. It could be questions and answers, it could be words and translations, it could be names of students in your class, it could be countries and capital cities, whatever you want. Then you save it and you can open it with any of the Triptico resources. So hopefully that's going to be another big advantage, in that it makes everything so much more efficient. So that was the plan anyway. So I'll quickly show you in the activity database some different files. So when I click to open the activity database, I initially see all my save files. So you can see I've got 235 save files, and I can sort of toggle backwards and forwards between them. I can also use this search bar to filter them. So if I was to filter everything I've created for literature, then you can see it sort of just shows me those files. So either have literature in the title, or you can also add these little tags. So this is quite important when you're creating an activity, and when you save it, the more tags you can add, the easier it'll be for you to find when you search, rather than using folders, which became a little bit complicated when people started sharing folders, and we had folders within folders and different bits and pieces. I thought tags is a much more straightforward way of doing it, again, hopefully. So you start off by seeing all your own saves in there. You can drop down this this menu and you can click the global saves. So these are files that have been created by people around the world. So if I was to type French, then we can see there are 181 different files created so far that have been tagged French. So if I was a French teacher, I could go through and have a little look at each activity, and if it's something that I thought that I could use, then again I can set it as a favorite, or I can make a little note of the Triptico. So that's something new, being able to search the global database and find things that might be helpful. You can also view anything you've marked as a favorite. You can view anything that you've deleted. So if you accidentally delete a file, I just do lots of testing. So I end up with lots of files like this, testing, delete. But if I accidentally deleted this one, I can go and I can launch it, or I can click to restore it, and that'll send it back to the database. And for anybody who's ever used the old web version of Triptico, you can click and view your legacy saves. So these are the 624 files that I created with the website. So you can see they've got the little sort of sign saying they're not publicly available. These are only available to me at the moment. If I wanted to share them with anyone else, I'd need to save them to the new database. But I could still go through, and I've got all sorts of things in here. Still go through and can still launch it if I wanted to. I get this little note saying it's stored in the old database. If I wanted to bring it across the new database, I'd just click to edit it. There's going to be lots of images that someone's made. And then I could click to save it, and that would bring it from the old database into the new database. So it's up to you. If you have got old files, you can either just launch them straight from the legacy saves, or if you edit and save them, that'll bring them across into the new database. So hopefully that'll be helpful. And also, if it was a file that you created with Bingo, you'll now be able to open it with a spinner, open it with, what's the question, open it with any of the resources. So hopefully that'll be helpful as well. Okay, I'm going too fast now. 23. So there's a dog. So that's the activity database. That's where you'll find all your saved files and all the files that other people have created. So I'll have a quick go at creating a list. So I'll click to create. Your options that you have just to set up your sort of initial template, and these can all be changed as you go, but your initial options are whether you want one column or two columns. So you would just click. So we'll just create a simple one column list of, I just scribbled down some names of people whilst we were waiting for the session to start. How many did I scribble down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 names. So I can change that to 8 rows. And then the other option is whether you just want to create a simple list, or for some of the resources, you might add some false data. So if you've played Find 10, where you get 15 options and you've got to find the 10 correct panels, then you would add some false data in there as well. But for this one, just a simple list. I'm not going to add any false data in there. So I'll click to create the new list. It's the screen that I'll see. Again, this is the same for every single resource. I'll click to edit. We'll call it Whitley High School session, just to give it a quick title. And then to edit the rows, all I would do is just click and we'd type in our first name, which was Louise. And so when I go back to the main list, you can see Louise has been added. You can click to view the second one, Phil. So click to go back. So we've now got Louise and Phil, Kate. And then rather than keep going back to the main screen, I can use these buttons here just to toggle backward and forward between the rows. So that'll make things a bit quicker again. Sarah, Ben, James, Aaron, and Andy. Oops. So then when I go back, I've got my 8 rows of 8 names in there, just a simple 1-column list of names. You can click to preview it, see how it looks. So we'll see how this would look as word magnets, for example. So you can see we've got all the names there as magnets, which we can drag around the screen. So that all looks fine. So when you're happy with it, you can then click to save it. We'll give it a file name. Oops, so I'll just call it the same. Whitley Bay High School session names. You then have the option whether you want to make this public, which would mean it's available for other people to access, or private. So I'll mark this one as private because it's not going to be particularly helpful to anyone else to see a list of our names. This is where I would add my tags. So if you were my lit class, I might add lit. If you were class, whatever, 11DR or whatever it might be, then I could add that in there. So you can add as many tags as you want in there. And then once you're happy, you can add notes if you want to, but we'll not bother for now. So we'll just click to save the file. There we go, that's now saved to the database. So when I go back to the main menu, go back to the activity database, should be a new file. There we go, Whitley Bay High School session names. You see it's got the little sort of prohibited sign, that just means it's private, so nobody else can view that one. So even though it's got a Triptico 9063, if you type that in, it would say you can't view this file. It's just private just for me. If I wanted to make it public, if I was doing this with a class and it was a lesson that I wanted to keep private before and then make public after, then I can just toggle that switch and that's now public. We'll keep it as private for now. So there's the file. Yeah, so we'll click to view more information. To launch it, we'll just click this green button. And then again, this is the sort of big difference, whereas in the past, I would have created that with word magnets and it would have been stuck in word magnets. Now I can open it with word magnets, as we've seen. I've also changed the font as well. That's another option. So you won't all get this font if you don't like it. You can choose one that suits you. You've still got all your options for changing the backgrounds. So we've got the different templates. So if I wanted to use this to take a register, let's say, we could drag everyone across here and then they move their magnet across when they've arrived. We could do it maybe for confidence on a particular topic, you know, dragging your name according to how confident you are. You can still do all the size, your magnets, you can color them, all these different bits of things. There's also, each resource has got a tutorial. So if you click that, that'll take you to a tutorial that I've put together. So again, and I'm going through these things fairly quickly. So you can click and view the tutorial and that'll tell you about all these different things. You can add images as well, if you've been used to using images with your word magnet activities. So you can add them on the fly. So if I go to my sample, I've got some sample images in here. So the Globe Theatre. So we can just drag and drop images now, which hopefully again makes things much easier. So we can just do that on the fly, just drag different images and drop those in the background. But again, you can have a little play around with that and see how it goes. I can also open that same activity. So it's just our same list of names. I can open it with one of the selectors. So if I wanted to select who was going to present first or who was going to answer a question, so it's selected Phil. I could open it with a spinner. So there we get all the names. Spin them and make a selection. Still got things like the student group. So if I wanted to put you into 4 groups to work on whatever it would be, a particular activity, I can do that. And again, this is all just from the exact same list, selections from within that list. So things like the order sorter. So if we were presenting, or if these really could be names of students or names of groups, and we could decide who was going to present first. This is a handy one even for, well, for anything really, putting, you know, anything into sort of size order or sequencing things. Or I used to use it if I was teaching something like Romeo and Juliet. It was my subject, English, so I would, you know, have all the different characters from Romeo and Juliet, and we could say who's most to blame for the death of Juliet, for example. And some people might, you know, put Lord Capulet to the top, or some people might put Romeo or whatever. So that's another really versatile resource. So anyway, conscious of time. So that same list opened with lots of different resources. There's more resources too. You can sort of, again, swipe again. Some of them will be grayed out. So find them was one of the ones that I said needs false. Needs some false data, obviously, to work. It's no good just having 12 correct answers on there. So some of them, you know, you might find the grayed out, but it'll tell you why if you click it. So that one needs 16 items. This has only got 8, but if I was to add another 8 items, then it would work fine. I've also added connections, but again, that won't be available to you till the next update, but that was quite a popular one, I think. So that's there now as well if people want to, or will be there if people want to use that. Okay, so I'll show you quickly, I've got 9 minutes, how we would create a 2-column list. Close all these down. So if I go back to create, so this time rather than creating a 1-column list, I'll create a 2-column list. I've got some here, what have I got? Let's use this one, Shakespeare famous lines. So rather than typing them out, I'll show you how you can just copy and paste them. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we'll just keep it as a simple list with 12 items, create a new list. So I'll give it a title. So Shakespeare famous lines. Type too quickly. And so rather than type them all in, if I just go and copy these, just right click and copy, and now I can go back into Triptico, right click, paste into column 1 and get all my plays. Again, right click, copy and paste into column 2. And there we go. So we've created another activity. So if you do it that way, you can create activities in seconds. Again, I can preview it. I can open it with, let's say the spinner, and this will just randomly select a line from a play. So we can find out extra information which play it was from, Macbeth. So again, once I'm happy with it, I can click to save it. The process is exactly the same. Just call it Shakespeare example. I'll keep it private. Again, but here I would add my tags. So I might add lit. I might add drama if it was before I teach Romeo and Juliet. Then I can add these different tags if it was for GCSE, etc. So I put little tags in there. So searching for any of these tags will display this file for me. Click to save the file. There we go, it's saved. So now I'm going to go back again to the activity database. Hopefully we've got another new file. There it is, Shakespeare example. You can see it's got a slightly different color coding across the bottom. It's got a blue and a yellow bar. That just means it's got 2 columns. The single yellow bar, that was our list of names, just had 1 column. And you might see some which have got a red and green bar somewhere. There we go. That just means it's a true or false activity. There's also some which are underlined, something I'll not have time to show you today, but you can explore in your own time, or I'm happy to come back and do another session. You can now build whole lessons using Triptico, so you can sort of build, entire lessons of, using interactive Triptico activities, and there's all sorts of things like interactive images and text scrambles and all sorts of different things in there as well. Go back to my Shakespeare example, click to open it. So again, I can launch it with any of these different things. I'll launch it with cardboard to start. So this just converts my list into a pack of cards. So let's say if I was to deal out 9 cards, I could just go through and ask my students which play they think it came from. Click the center of a card to make it bigger. Click the edge of a card to flip it over. We can just go through and do that. We could also open it with something like bingo. So in bingo, the students would choose any 6 plays and then write them on their bingo card. And then to play the game, it would display a line from a play. So if they've got the Shakespeare play that line's from on their bingo card, then they would cross it off. So we can carry on, have a game of bingo. Again, the same list we could open with hidden card, which is the new name for what's the question. So sort of decided didn't necessarily need to be a question, as in this case, it's not actually a question, but we could still play with this. We'll just automatically colour all the envelopes. You would need to decide which one's the easiest ones, and they'd be the 10-point questions. Which ones are the sort of medium ones, they'd be a 15-point questions, and then the most difficult ones would be worth 20 points, they'd be red. You can see how many teams you would want. I'll just keep it as 2 teams for now. I've also added this mystery mode. Again, if you used what's the question in the past, you might have made use of that. It just sort of didn't show you how much each envelope was worth. You had to try and work out for yourself. And so here the students would choose an envelope and they'd have to tell me which play they think would be on the card inside. So if they were to say choose on the 20-point ones, and if they were to say King Lear, we can then click and see what's inside and then award the points or not award the points according to. There we go. So again, so that's just that same list. So we open it with bingo, a hidden card, the spinner. We put it on a simple selector, just make selections. And so again, these are plays, but I mean, they could be any, absolutely anything you could think of, whatever subject you teach. I'm sure you can think of a way you could use these, whether it's for sums or, you can use images. I'll show you quickly how you would add images as well. And then you can use Triptico hopefully in loads and loads of different ways as a pairs thing as well. So we'll have to try and find the matching, try and find Hamlet if we haven't found. So there's all sorts of things there. I'll show you quickly how you would add an image. So if I go into my Shakespeare example, I'll just click to edit it. If I wanted to add image which is going to appear in the background, then I would put it with the title. So let's say we want the Globe Theatre to be a background image there. We would put that in there. And let's have a little, I think. I think of a picture I've got that's vaguely relevant to any of those things. I haven't really. But if I wanted to add, let's say Hamlet was set on a mountain, then I could just drag and drop a picture in there, and that will appear as a background for that particular row. So now if I was to preview it, if I was to say open it with word magnets, we can see the Globe Theatres now as the background. And if I was to preview it with cardboard, D3. There we go. So there's Hamlet. So now flip it over. Hamlet's got the picture of the mountain in the background, not particularly relevant, but hopefully it shows you how easy it is to add images as well. So you can create activities which are just text, which are 1 column, 2 column, which were just images. There is in the database, loads of different examples. And that's probably not a bad way just to learn about it, just to go into the activity database, go to the global saves and just have a little look through and try some different activities. You can click to see how they've been put together. Another thing that's quite helpful, if you click to view the data, you can also remove certain things. So if we were, if these were all plays from, I've got Shakespeare in my head, but if we're studying Macbeth, I could take out all the quotes that were from any other character other than Lady Macbeth, say, and they'll just be temporarily removed. They won't be deleted from the activity, but when I run it, they wouldn't be there. And you can also, another handy thing is you can switch the columns. So if I find an example, let's say in French, there's a French teacher. So we've got the month of the year as a good example here. So if I was to, let's say, launch it with a spinner now, then we get the month of the year in French. And then we would get the extra info, and that would tell us the month in English, but we can go in and view the data, switch the columns. Again, it's just a temporary thing, but now when I open it with a spinner, maybe at the end of the lesson, I might have that same spinner, but now I've got the words in, or the months in English, and I would click to see what they are in French. So you can add a little bit of variety. That's quite handy for bingo as well. So sometimes they could be writing French words on the bingo card and seeing the clues in English. Sometimes we're writing English words on the bingo card and seeing the words in French. If you did want to have a look at the lesson builder, then you would just go, instead of creating a new list, you would just click to view the lesson builder. And so what you can do here, I'll really quickly show you, there's these little tutorials as well, but it's almost like one of the things that people ask was how they would put a Triptico activity in a PowerPoint, and you can't, but hopefully this is another way around it. So you can add different slides. My alarm's telling me I've got to go and pick Penny up. And then you would just edit these different things. So again, you can drag your content on top of the slide. You can add little hotspots. You can add your title. So if we're going to call it geography, if we're doing about mountains, I can't spell anything today. Then you can add a Triptico activity. So I don't know what geography activities I've got in here. Let's say we're going to do something about South American countries and capitals. We're doing about mountains. And then again, I can choose which resource I want to open it with. So I'll just open it with the spinner. And so now when I preview this, I get this sort of like slideshow, and I can click and go through. So I get my picture of the mountain to start. And these can be saved and shared just in exactly the same way. So if you put together a lesson, you can save it, share it with your colleagues. You could run it on the interactive whiteboard, or you could share it with students so they could use it in class if they've got their own iPads or whatever. Or if they're working from home, then they can do that as well. And there's the activity. So if you did want to have a look at that, that's how it would work. There's a few little tutorials, but hopefully there you've seen it's really easy to create your list, 1 or 2 columns, as many rows as you want. Simple list, true or false. If you click true or false, the only thing that'll be different is you'll have this little switch on the end, and if it's red, that means it wants some false information. So if this was countries in Europe, we might put America, Australia, Sri Lanka, and then here we might put whatever, Spain, France, and Italy. So that's the only difference with a true or false one. You get these little switches just to indicate whether it's true or false. So I hope that's helpful. There we go. So
thanks, David. That's great.
Okay. Right. So no.
Right. So what I'm just going to ask people to do now is have like a 10-minute play around with it. Make things. Make yourselves single lists, dual lists. I usually use the dual lists as question answer things, but you might want to keep your question answers fairly general because that works best when you're using them for a range of different games and strategies, or even some true or false lists as well. I'll give you about 10 minutes, and then at about 2:55, I'll come back on and just give you some things that I've found from using the new one and how it can be used to make really successful, not just individual lessons, but successful schemes of work, really, or how things can work across different lessons. And then I think David will be back towards,
I'm trying to get back. We're generally back in time for Swashbucklers by the time that starts, so it'll probably be sort of 3:05, something like that, hopefully.
Right. That's
right.
perfect.
I better dash. I'll turn my camera off. Right, so thanks very much. See you in a bit.
Okay. So, see you, David. Where I'm able to help out with any particular questions that you might have, but I'm going to give you some free time to work on this until about 2:55, so about 12 minutes just to make and play and ask me any questions. Either ask on here, or you can email me. I'll put in the chat box. I'm available for any of those to act as any advice. But make the most of this time really to make things. Hello. Can I just check what's going on the screen at the moment? So I'm hoping that there's a PowerPoint slide on the screen with some words to do with Macbeth. Am I right? You can pop mics on if you want.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Right, I'm just going to talk about two things that we've learned through new Triptico. Now, I'm going to assume for this that many of you have used the old Triptico before, but if you haven't, that's not a problem at all. With new Triptico, the difference is that you're no longer making one great quiz. You're making something that's a much more joined up set of resources, really, that can be used by more people and can be used in more flexible ways. So when you're thinking about what you're going to create in Triptico, it might be worth thinking this through as a department and thinking what is the key content and key knowledge you want to cover. That would also hopefully reduce workload. Now, it's also easy to share with these things. So, for example, I've been planning some lessons about Macbeth's character, and let's just do a little bit of English work. I'll see if you can find 4 words that truly describe Macbeth's state of mind. Go on, call them out, please. Hopefully on the screen is 12 words.
Ambitious.
Ambitious.
Jealous.
Panicked.
Scheming. The word.
Go on, can you get the rest?
Paranoid.
Afraid.
Determined. No. Excited.
Well, hark at you. Wasn't that good? Well played. So, yeah, we've made that. We've succeeded in that particular mission there. So I've made just basically a set of words. Now I just want to show you how that one loads up here. This is Macbeth's emotions. And as you can see, it's got the red and the green half and half on here. When it's loaded up, that means it's a true or false one. So half and half means it's 2 columns, it's true or false. So it works for the find 10, which is called find them or something, and also quite well for swipe 2. They're ones that need true or false lists. So, but you'll also see that this particular one, I've put the code in the bottom of the PowerPoint. So on the top of the PowerPoint, that's the web stream for where we've made the home learning lesson. And on the bottom, we've got, so teachers, when they teach this lesson themselves, just need to know, Triptico, new Triptico 7901. They simply input 7901 and they've got access to that lesson. So it's great for sharing. Now, because we're not making necessarily find the answers or find the question, or sorry, what's the question strategies. We're making more like kind of overall content based stuff. You probably are going to want to get together with people in the department and think, what subject matter do we want to cover, and then what are we going to make? So what question and answer sets are you going to make? What true or false sets are you going to make? When you've got things made, you can have fantastic lessons with them. So this is how I've started this week with my Year 11 lessons. And I honestly think my Year 11 lessons have been fantastically well planned, and they've been absolutely flat as you know what. They've been rubbish, but that's not down to the planning, I don't think. So we're going to play now Macbeth blockbusters. These are quotes from Macbeth. And they look absolutely impossible to answer. So when I brought that up, and I said, which of Macduff's revelations seals Macbeth's doom? And the class looked and go, I haven't got a clue. And they only did it last lesson and go, it was his mother's womb, wasn't it? So they're working out MW must have been mother's womb. So Macbeth was from his mother's womb ripped. And they go for it like that, and they're able to get that. So brilliant. They got that and got the tick. And actually got 4 more right than they got wrong from this. So I was really buzzing with that. And I played it as a game of blockbusters to introduce it. Then the second lesson, I reminded them some of the quotes, but this time I used the one where you just take them out, take some of the words out. So I said, come on, then we did some work in it as a class. I said, what are the missing words? And we were writing down quotations and writing about quotations, and they had to try and work out what the missing words were. So they were there. That's a bit of a rude one. So we'll go on to the next one. So was that. They would say, that was come you spirits, wasn't it? That tend on something, thoughts unsex me here. That is a debate about what this word here might be. And they said, was it mortal? And they got it. So I was able, that resource here was exactly the same quiz set, that I've used here, but I've been able to use it for 2 different things. Next lesson, I'm going to use it as a word magnets. So we're going to put on a question. I might choose a background to it. So I'm going to pick a background to this. I'm going to choose a template. And for this particular one, I'm going to have some kind of graph thing, I think. So I'm going to go with this. So where does it go in the play? Is it early in the play, late in the play? And what does it show about Macbeth's madness? So Lady Macbeth's first plea to the witches, early in the play, quite mad. Macbeth realizes he's doomed, but he faces death as a warrior right at the end, not very mad. So we're going to play that like that. Again, the same set of material, the same quiz that I made, the same set of quotations. We're then going to play it as a bingo grid. So I will ask them to write out 6 quotations in a bingo grid, and then we'll play it as bingo. So they would have time there to draw a 3x2 grid, and we'll play it as bingo. So the first one would come up, and it would give them the clue. Banquo describing the witches. What does he say? How can they match it up with one of the ones on there that's so withered and wild in their attire? Now, with all opportunities, I'm trying not just to look at recall and what do you remember, but hopefully getting them to really say interesting things and focus upon the language. For example, that Banquo quote here, I want to get them to talk about the use of alliteration within this and how Banquo's alliteration creates a really mocking tone when talking about the witches. This is very English specific, what I'm saying here, but very Macbeth specific. But I'm hopefully getting the point across is when you make one really good data set of question answers, you can use it in multiple ways. So you could start off with the blockbusters and then move next lesson to a missing words. And when you start this lesson with the missing words, you then go into a word magnets, which is more of a detailed discussion based one. And then you could end it with a bingo or start the next lesson with a bingo. If you've got a great set of information you want to cover in a week and you know you've got them Friday 5 at the end of the week, why not plan your bingo for the Friday 5? Because it's a lovely way to settle kids down and then hype them up a little bit and get them excited and having fun too. So the real beauty of new Triptico is time saving. So I think we've got to give more thought into what we make and the content of what we're creating, and less thought to the actual game it's going to be, because we've actually got loads and loads of possible options when it comes to the game. For example, if I'm going to go back to the Macbeth quotes one, Macbeth 20 quotes, there. What do I want to open it as? Can I have as a spring selector? 20 quotes from Macbeth. What's the witch's paradoxical chant? I could ask them, and they could tell me, oh, that wasn't right. They could tell me what it actually was. I could open it as spinner, as David's shown quite a few times there as well. I can open it as a find them or a find the answer one. Sorry, find the answer, not find them. Loads of options. So it's really worth making a cracking data set and then just having a good play around with how well does it work. One thing I've noticed with my data sets is you'll see I've got Macbeth quotes here. They're the 20 quotes. But on some things, it opened the wrong way around. It opened Macbeth 20 quotes. I was going to launch it. Sorry, Macbeth 20 quotes. I'm going to edit it. It was bringing up the statements rather than the quotes. All I can do there is switch my data and save it as something else. That's why I'm going to cancel that. So to swap my data around, my columns around, that's why I've also got a Macbeth quotes B with them swapped around. So you can change your tables over if depending on the game you want to have. Right, I'm around for 10 more minutes. David should be back soon as well. Please feel free to ask any questions, run anything by me that you might want. But I don't think there's anything more I want to say. Just basically share with discuss with your departments what you want made and think about how you can use one quiz that you've made across a range of lessons to make the most of it.
Hi, Phil.
Yes.
Hi, it's Tom. I was just going to say, I asked IT to install the app on all the iPads last year.
Yeah.
So you can actually, if you give them the code, the kids can play the game in their pairs or individually.
Right.
As well, which works quite well. Just another thought. So if you get the spinner, for example, the kids can have the spinner within their pairs, just answering the questions. It doesn't have to be a whole class activity, which was just something I found quite useful. Thought I'd add it.
Have you done it, Tom?
Yeah.
And do they need a login?
No, you give them the code of the activity, and they can log in not as a guest, I think.
Right.
Or they could do last year. So, for example, I had like 20 questions on a spinner, and then they span it, and whoever turn it was answered that question. If they got it right, they got a point. But instead of a whole class activity, it was just within the 2. I'm not sure if you can still do that, but you could on the app last year, which I found really useful. Like,
yeah, that sounds great. That.
I'm back. If you, I don't know if you had any questions.
Hi, David.
Hi,
Got a couple of questions. Someone want to jump in with any questions? Ben was asking about where is it? The question on the right-hand side here. He was asking about how do you follow people?
So if you click start sharing my screen again quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So this next it. So if you go into the activity database, so I'll go into the global saves. I'll just type. Oops. Search for something. Actually. So let's say I find this activity, and it tells me here who made it. So it's someone called Michiko Hauser. So I can click to view their profile, and then I can see they've created 79 activities. So if this was a particularly good activity, I can click and view all the activities they've made. So these are just the ones that she's made. These are the lessons I was talking about. So she started putting together some lessons. And I can also, I'll go back to that one again. On someone's profile, maybe already following her actually. So there we go. I'm already following her, but we'll just click to follow. Click the follow button there, and then you just get a little update. It's not. I don't know if I should call it follow really, but it sounds a bit much. But all it does, you just get little notifications when they create an activity. That's all. It's nothing more to it than that.
Does that? Sorry, hi David. Does that mean that when they create an activity, it comes up as a notification, or would we have to type that in to find it?
No, you'd get a little one. So because I follow Phil. So I get a little notification here saying he created inspector calls, and then Kim created one building characters. To get a little notification, so there's someone's added an activity of mine to their favourites. Yeah, so little things like that. So themselves that I follow. So you just get these little notifications will just pop up in there.
That's great. Cheers.
Okay.
Oh. Phil, you're on mute.
Sorry, David. Emily's just asked, what happens to all the previous Tripticos that we've made? Can we still access them on the older version?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share my screen again. That's the. So I've put in the PDF that I put together for you somewhere. I put a little link in there which might be handy, which will take you to a video that I put together, which shows, you know, in a bit more detail how you would do it. But essentially, just go into the activity database. You would just go down to legacy saves, and then everything you created with the old website should be here. So sometimes worth just having a little double check. So
David, can you just hang fire a second? It's just loading up slightly slower on the actual screen, I think.
Right.
Looks probably on yours, but it's not on at our end yet.
Right. Okay.
There it is now.
Right. The actual screen or the
screen's on now. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's legacy saves.
Yeah. So if I was to open this, Macbeth, what's the question? So you can launch it directly from the old database if you want to. And even though it was a what's the question activity, I can still click and launch it with word magnets or with a spinner if I want to. It's worth, I would say, just going and clicking to view the data and just have a little look. Sometimes because I created these, and I've been creating these since I was teaching, so I don't know how many years, 10, 12 years or so. And I've had so many different save formats and so many different ways of creating things and so many different ways of saving things that some things convert across slightly better than others. I mean, the good news is now that I've just got one settled way of creating, if ever there's a new version of Triptico in the future, it'll be so much easier to bring everything across. But you see this one looks okay. Sometimes you might get a blank row, you just have to click and delete it, but that looks fine. And so then I could save that if I wanted to. So if I edit it, click to save it. So I'll just keep it called Macbeth, what's the question? It also adds the little tags, so any tags that you added on the old version or any folders you put it in will be included there as well. So that should help things as well. Click to save it. So now because I've saved it, it's in the new database, I don't actually need to go to legacy saves to get it. It'll be in my saves, Macbeth, what's the question? So now I can share it if I want to. It's got a Triptych code. I can set it as public or private. People can set it as favorite and different bits of things like that. So it's up to you. You go into legacy saves, either just launch it directly from the old database But if you want to bring it across into the new database, edit, have a little look, check it's all okay, save it, and then it'll be added to the database for you. Should be all there.
Are there any other questions? Well, we've got David here. We've got 5 more minutes. You're welcome just to continue working on things, and if something pops up, just ask a question. Scott asks, does the word scramble one still exist?
No, but hopefully there's a slightly better version of it. Back into my save. So if I go into the lesson builder, so are you seeing the screen now?
Yep.
Yeah, right. So I've clicked on lesson builder. One of the templates that I've added is this text scramble. So hopefully this will be a slightly better way of doing it than it was with the older version. So we would just type in the text you wanted to scramble in there. You can add some feedback as well if you want to. So you could, explain why whatever you can put. Slightly better feedback than that, but you can put some little bits of feedback. And then when I preview that activity, if I go onto the slide, it'll scramble it for me. And then you can put it back in the right order. Then you get your little bit of feedback. So you can build that up so you could have 5 of those in a row. There's also similar things for image scrambles. There's things like hidden words. So you could type in you could type in the sentence. And then you would tap on the words you wanted to hide. And now when I preview it, so we've got the scramble first, and then we've got the hidden words after. So hopefully that's a bit more flexible, and you don't necessarily do this as a lesson. You could just build up a few different word scrambles. I was also thinking this lesson builder, if you were going to use, say, 3 different Triptico activities in a lesson, I'll just delete these. Another handy thing, rather than keep opening different ones and have them opening different windows, you could just put 3 Triptico activities as a lesson. So let me just quickly select some. We'll put the Macbeth, what's the question? Hidden card. We'll open our names as a spinner, and then we'll open something else. Romeo and Juliet connections. So I'll show you the new connections one as well while we're here. And so then you could just have those different activities, and you can just move backwards and forwards between them, rather than having them open in different windows. So I thought something maybe, even though it's not an entire lesson in itself, might be quite a handy thing. And that's the new connection. So you would go through and I can't remember what the connections were now. There we go. So there's also another thing with the connections. You can also have the same person in twice, belonging to 2 different groups. So I thought that might be quite handy as well as a little sort of way of sort of further challenging people. I'm trying to think what they were now. There was one with all people. There was the Capulet family. Anyway, this isn't very very interesting if people are going through this, but. There we go. So then it tells you all link to the House of Capulet. By the way, but that's in there, or that will be in there by the time you get the next update. So yeah, I can't remember what the initial question was. Oh yeah, word, yeah. So yeah, that's how you would put in, if you wanted to put in a little word scramble, you can put them in there.
Okay, are there any other questions anyone would like to ask? Right, thanks very much, David. Cheers, really appreciate that.
Right, so
really great, thank you very much.
Right, so on a little PDF, I'll put my email address. So if you do have a question, then feel free, just send us an email, and I'll try my best to help out. But
Thanks,
cheers.
David. Cheers.
Yes, thank you.